Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another video, another episode of Steve and Ahsan chatting all things Man City from the weekend, because there's always plenty to talk about, and there definitely was after this weekend. Of course, this man alongside me, Mr. Ahsan Naeem, the head honcho, the director of football over at 9320. How you doing, man? You good? Good morning.
I'm really good. I think I'm not sure I'm the director of football at 9320. I think I might be the Ferran Soriano equivalent. I think Hocking gets the director of football title. Yeah, he gets to do the fun stuff.
What do you want to be seen as? Everyone wants to see you as Pep, basically, don't they? You know, everyone wants to be there.
Yeah, I want to be Pep, but that's just never happening.
So who've you got over there? So let's have a list then. So how would Hocking go on? Yeah, go on.
So Hocking would be the director of football.
Stefan's over Brady, isn't he? Definitely.
Yeah, Stefan. No, actually, Lloyd is Omar.
Oh, okay.
Stefan is general counsel.
Okay.
So yeah. Lloyd is Omar. Howard is Cheeky, and I'm Ferran. We don't have a Khaldoon, and I'm not being Khaldoon because that's too pompous. That so
in your head,
I'll stick to being Ferran.
Maybe I'm Khaldoon. Do you rock the sunglasses though? That's all right. If you rock the Khaldoon sunglasses, then you can be Khaldoon. That's how it works, man. We're chatting about 9320 podcast here. If you haven't already checked it out, what are you waiting for? A wonderful plethora of guests over there to join the usual suspects like Lloyd, Stefan, and Howard, of course, and Ahsan. Check it out, 9320 podcast. 9320.com. You can see the link in the description. It's on screen right now as well. Go over there. Loads of wonderful podcasts. And I always describe 9320 as like raw, visceral, and but informed at the same time, which to me, as football goes, pretty much perfect. So go and check it out.
Yeah.
Anything else to add, Ahsan? Or
what's
on there?
You know me. I find it.
What's up? What have you got? What's up at the moment? What's the latest pod about?
So actually, yesterday we did the review of the Sheffield United game, which was a really good review. We tend to do our match reviews tend to be quite long. They tend to be like an hour 15, an hour 20, an hour 25. So that was really good. And tomorrow we're starting a brand new show. Which I guess I'll give you the exclusive because we've not told anybody yet. But Jordan Elgott from the BBC is going to be doing a regular show either every week or every couple of weeks, and we do the first episode of that tomorrow. We've got a transfer podcast coming probably Thursday, but it might even be deadline day depending on how the Nunes thing unfolds. But we tend to do 5 or 6 hours of City related podcasts a week.
Yeah.
So if you go for a run, if you go to the gym, you got to walk your dogs, you got to clean the flat. Signing up to 9320 is the smartest way to navigate those things without being bored.
It's doing the dishes for me. That's why I listen. I'm a podcast man doing the dishes. You know, when I'm there, because we have to do a lot every night. So it's one of those things where I'm just there scrubbing away, I kind of sort of like it as well. You know, that's why I like it. But guys,
I've had
DMs. I like that. The rock and roll podcast.
Yeah, I've had DMs from the wives and girlfriends of listeners thanking us because it's like, my husband used to hate walking the dog, my husband used to hate, cleaning the flat or whatever, and now they listen to your podcast and they do it without complaining and they volunteer. So we provide a service for relationships as well.
Well, there we go, exactly. No dishwashers, Toes said in the chat. I haven't got a dishwasher, no, it didn't come in the kitchen. And to be honest, it's the worst thing. It didn't come in his kitchen. We were like, it'll be fine. Oh, Jesus, when you've got you doing 3 meals a day for a kid, it isn't fine. But I am the dishwasher, as the joke goes, that's how it goes. Anyway, I put a link in the chat, of course. You can see it as the pinned comment. Go check out 9320.com. It's a wonderful podcast. And obviously 9320 pod on Twitter as well. And as Nathan from Man City Discord said, 9320, the rock and roll podcast. I see it like that. That's what they are. Guys, we're here.
We are quite rock and roll.
Yeah, definitely. It's edgy over there, man. And you got then Howard Hocking, obviously, football director. He knows his stuff. Guys, we need to talk about Rodri. Can we talk about Rodri? What is that tune from? I don't actually know it. I feel like it's a bit before my time or something. Someone said Salt and Pepper. Salt and Pepper inspired. Is it actually? Can we talk about Rodri? Someone will know. Ahsan, can we talk about Rodri, mate?
Sure. I mean, he's probably the best footballer in the world right now. Let me put it this way, right? I think he's probably the most influential footballer in the world right now, in that I think that his influence on this City team transcends any other player's influence on any other side.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I think that's it. It's ridiculous, isn't it? Like his quality at the moment, it feels to me. I know it's early days. We're only a few games into the season, but he might even be better. Like there might be like an element of some. I feel in general some footballers, they thrive off their own status, so to speak. They thrive off their own sense of their, when they grow, they can sense it. Like he's the guy who's singing his own tune in the dressing room, and that could be perceived as a little bit arrogant for some people. But that to me is him realizing the strength. It's that bit in classic superhero films when they realize how powerful they are, And it's like I feel like Rodri, he's sort of realizing that, and to me, that is scary because you look at his so far this season already. He's got 2 goals in the Premier League. He's got a couple of assists as well, I think, this season. He's had man of the match, of course, a couple of times. He is on for, in my opinion, a potential like 10 goal a season, maybe even 10 assists campaign. More.
I think he can get more than 10 goals.
2 already. Yeah, I don't think it's something like it because he's closer to goal. I mean, he's notable. And there's a like we talked a lot about the Gundogan replacement. I don't think we realised the Gundogan replacement. Kovacic wasn't that. He sort of was, but he wasn't. It's Rodri. And this is what I talked about as well a couple of times on the channel, where I feel like in general, if you have quality players, you have enough quality players, usually one of them steps up to find a way. Like this is why I've never been worried about. It's like when Gundogan stepped up when Aguero wasn't in, we played a false 9. If you have sufficient quality, if you give Guardiola sufficient quality, one of those players, I don't know if it'd be Rodri or Bernardo, but one of them is going to score 10 plus goals this season because they're given a different set of responsibilities. And Kovacic was in it this season already. The through balls he's been playing, driving forward and so on. This is a guy obviously can do that. And you can't judge a player based off what you know of them because the system's going to be different and the responsibilities are going to be different. And like Rodri, big chat and big comment from Nathan. He said Rodri's got more moments than Yaya now, and do you know what? That doesn't even seem crazy when you start to list them all. It's ridiculous, man.
Well, that was the name. That's the name that I used yesterday when we did the review pod. We were talking about Rodri, and I said for me, he's kind of getting to Yaya Toure levels now, where Toure kind of the beginning of Yaya was like, oh, he's a holding midfielder, and then as his influence began to grow on the team and on games, you just almost felt like actually you should play him further forward because he's just so dangerous in the final third as well. And I do feel as though we're being pulled in that direction by Rodri. Like if you look at he has the same skill set as Yaya had in that he can play from really deep and he can be like a very deep playmaker basically. But actually he's fine really close to goal as well. Yeah. He can see the short, little, incisive passes, and he can finish right foot and left foot. I mean, you look at that goal against Bayern, and
even the one the other day, both left-footed. Bayern goal, that goal.
Absolutely. But the Bayern goal for me, it's just like there's a thing about. I think the thing that separates the good from the greats is when you do the thing that you do, right? And I think the thing with Rodri is that it's massive moments. It's not like little things. Like that goal against Arsenal in the however deep into that game it was, that's a huge goal. First goal against Bayern at home in a tie like that. It's just enormous. The Champions League final. Yeah.
The Aston Villa
You've never won it before. Yeah.
And the quality it's the quality of the goals as well. That's the thing for me, isn't it? They're like the
Villa equaliser. Oh,
20 yards passed into the bottom corner. Like the composure of that, it's ridiculous. And then even a man of the match assist in the Super Cup final, and then like Champions League player of the season. Like, I mean, this with the greatest respect to Yaya, but his legacy for us was sort of pushing us towards the Premier League title. Like Rodri's legacy is winners as the Champions League, when like it's like and having those equal level of goals. And I love Yaya, but Rodri, he's doing it for City on a sort of higher level, and I mean that's just factual in my opinion. I don't mean to denigrate Yaya at all, but the games he's playing in are bigger. Like I'm sorry, we talk about Yaya.
It's true.
The bigger games, Stoke. We talk about Stoke and Newcastle in the FA Cup and against United, sure, but the level of the games we're talking about here, they are bigger games.
I agree. I would just say that, like, on pure ability, Yaya's better footballer than Rodri. So I take your point fully.
Yeah.
Like, I think that Rodri's had more bigger moments, and also, like you say, the level is a lot higher when you get to the Champions League final. The mentality has to be different, but at the same time, Yaya Toure was unique.
He was.
He's
the thing is, obviously, I don't. Rodri wouldn't be able to match that dribbling. No, that powerful ability, the way he glided past people, and I still think he's a much more creative player than Rodri. Rodri, of course, much more harder working. Much better defensively and all that kind of stuff. So he's probably more balanced that way, I would say. Yaya's weird because he was a defensive midfielder who let Gareth Barry do all the work, or Fernandinho. So it was weird because he was he was the sort of guy who played deep, but then did all his best work further forward. But look, to be honest, the fact that we can have this debate full stop is, and in the space of a decade, it's just it's ridiculous. And then that's without even talking about De Bruyne, Gundogan, Fernandinho. We're just blessed with world class midfielders. And the thing is, though, with Rodri, look, we can't talk about Rodri without talking about the potential painful alternative, no Rodri, which of course then leads us to people like Kovacic and Nunes. If Nunes comes in a word, then of course you can elaborate. Do we have enough to sort of get by without Rodri for a little bit?
I don't know, is the honest answer. It's not. It's a question that I don't want to find the answer out to, because that means that we've lost Rodri for a period of time. I don't massively rate Nunes. Like, he's not a guy who massively moves the needle for me. It feels a little bit like he is the replacement for Calvin Phillips while Calvin Phillips is still here. And Calvin Phillips was essentially a backup player, which is why he was bought for the fee that he was bought for. And I think that with Nunes, if you look at the haggle that City are going through, and the fact that they seem pretty adamant they're not prepared to pay more than a certain amount, I think it's because they view him as a backup player. He's not a guy who you think is going to have the type of impact that Rodri would have, or some of the other first team players that we've bought would have. I don't think he would have that influence. Personally, I think Kovacic can play as a 6 for sure. I'm not massively worried about that. And actually, if you had a midfield 3 of Kovacic, Bernardo, and Foden, that works. It's not an issue. I think the bigger problem is more just a squad numbers and depth problem, that if you have to use Bernardo in centre midfield, then who are you going to play on the right wing? Well, it's going to be Cole Palmer, or it's going to be Doku. Neither of them are proven, and that's not, like, you have to prove yourself before if you're building a squad. If I was the manager, I'd look at that and I'd go, well, no, I need another centre midfield player, because if something does happen to Rodri and I have to move Kovacic backwards, well, I've only got Phil and Bernardo for the next 4 months, because Kev is out, and then I've not got a right winger. So I think it shows in a way how small the squad feels just with the De Bruyne injury. And also it shows the kind of pointlessness of Calvin Phillips.
That's fair. I mean, the thing is, I guess, if Calvin Phillips had come in and just been a good player, because that's all we required of him, and we can argue whether he is or not, but the fact of the matter is, so far from Manchester City, he's not even been a player. He's been nothing. He's just not been there at all, and that to me is he's not that we know for now. We know now by now that he's sort of just not considered an option for Guardiola, which sounds crazy, but and anyone pretending that he is, it's just they've got the fingers in their ears, they're ignoring the obvious. Like, we can all see it, and this is not even. I'm not even going to get into my views of Calvin Phillips, because it's sort of irrelevant. What we think about Calvin Phillips is irrelevant. The proof is there right in front of us. We can see how he's not being used. We can see all the messaging coming out of the club that we consider a loan or a transfer. We can see constant messages from his agent apparently saying he doesn't want to go anywhere. The writing is on the wall, as Cameron said in the chat there. That's the best way to put it. We know that. So we've got a non-player there. Having said that, Calvin Phillips came in to be a backup, not the starter. I don't think we can expect. We can't expect, and backups are usually not as good as the first team players. I know that sounds. I know that sounds really reductive and simple, but we're not going to find another Rodri just out of nowhere now. And even if we did find another Rodri, they probably wouldn't play enough to become Rodri. That's also the catch there. So I guess we look at it this way. Nunes. Surely you'd think, given the fact that we know Guardiola does like him, this is not a hidden thing. Surely he becomes more useful than Calvin Phillips, and in that instance, that's that's obviously a net positive. And then once you talk about say Kovacic is the 6, Nunes does the box-to-box thing, and then a Foden or a Bernardo or whatever, and you think, well, do you know what? That's still better than 90% of teams in the league. 95, probably all of them, if I'm being honest.
But so a couple of things. I think that on the Phillips thing, I think it's important. It's always important to say,
close my window, by the way, because it's starting to piss it down. Carry on talking. Go for it. Yeah.
I think it's important to say that there's no shame in not being good enough to play in this City team. I think there's a lot of Premier League players who just wouldn't be good enough to play in this City team, and you wouldn't know it until they came.
Yeah.
And then it's either sink or swim. And I think with Calvin, it's a little bit that's what's happened, that he's come and he's just not at the level, and so that's okay. There's no shame in that. I personally am not. I'm pretty unconvinced by Nunes as a footballer, and I'm pretty unconvinced by him being the Phillips replacement, just because I don't know how much better he is than Calvin Phillips, and so I'm a little bit like, what are you going to do? You're going to buy another lad who might be good enough and might not be good enough?
Is in the absence of Rodri, is Kovacic not the replacement? Then Nunes is the Kovacic replacement, if that makes sense. You're in the current roles. Is it like that? Because that's what I see. Because he's closer stylistically to Kovacic is now.
Yeah, you're right. You're right from a role point of view, but just purely from an ability point of view, the jury's out for me on Nunes, and I would also argue that the jury's out for the club, because if City aren't prepared to pay £60 million, if they've made it clear to Wolves that they won't meet that valuation in this summer's market after they bid 85 million for Paquetá, that tells me that they rate Nunes a hell of a lot lower than they rated Paquetá. And so my vibe then becomes, he's a body. They're signing a body because they've decided Phillips ain't a body anymore because Pep just doesn't trust him and won't play him. So then we need somebody who at least they trust a little bit and can be a body. And that's what he becomes.
And I think that's based on the presumption that we don't bid that money. The fact that the 60 million's sort of being muted, and we're not really hearing much. I read all the stuff as you do and so on, and read it all. I'm not seeing suggestions that Wolves want 70, 80. Like, it doesn't feel like that. Like, when the message gets out, and I feel like City are going in for this price for a reason, because obviously they're speaking to George Mendes, and he's very much he's the footballing director unofficially at Wolves, isn't he? I do feel like, do you think it'll get done? I think it'll get done personally. I think it will. I think City will pay up. You don't. See, this is where we're in a different place mentally, isn't it? Because I feel they will accept about 64, 65 million or something like that. And
City aren't paying 64, 65 million. So the problem right now is that Wolves have said very clearly the starting point is £60 million, and then you put add-ons on top. So it's not 60 million all in. It's you begin with a fee of £60 million, and then you put add-ons on top of that. And that's our starting point for a negotiation. City have gone in and offered 55 all in. And Wolves have gone, well, we're going to reject that out of hand. So you're asking City to get to, and I think the other problem we have is that this summer it's been really a seller's market. So Southampton got what they wanted for Lavia. West Ham got what they wanted for Rice. Dortmund got what they wanted for Bellingham. In general, when you look at fees as they're being quoted, they're high and they're stiff, and selling clubs are pretty strong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for example, I was saying this to somebody yesterday. Southampton got relegated, and Lavia's had 1 year in the Premier League, and he's not an international at any kind of high level. And they got 65 million-ish for him, right? Yeah. And then, no, but you say Chelsea, but it's part of the market.
Yeah, I know.
Because
right.
Liverpool got to
it all
50
up,
or 55 million.
Out,
yeah, so it kind of, like, the market just kind of, it gradually gets higher and higher. And I think that this, for me, from the very beginning, something's felt a bit weird about this transfer. And the thing that has felt really weird is that you've bid 85 for Paquetá. That's public, and that's fallen apart. Now you have an alternative, and the valuation on the alternative It's 20 million less, maybe a bit more or less than Paquetá. The agent is Jorge Mendes, who you know really well.
Mm-hmm.
And Wolves, you know, are selling players because they have FFP issues. On paper, it's a really easy deal to do. On paper, it's a deal that you do in an afternoon, in that you go and you bid your 50 or your 55, whatever it is, and they go, no, we want 60. And you go, give us 24 hours. And you come back 24 hours later and you make the offer.
Yeah.
Now, rather than that happening, the lad's been on strike since Friday. That's really bad. If he's been on strike since Friday and it's now Tuesday and a fee's not been agreed, that means that Wolves are sat there, and that Wolves put it out there yesterday very clearly. We have a reintegration plan. If City don't meet our valuation, we'll discipline the player after the window closes, and we'll reintegrate him into the squad. So they've basically told City publicly, we want our valuation, and if you don't pay it, it's cool. We'll keep him. We'll figure it out.
I do agree that the fact that he's going on strike does suggest that City, he's trying to force something there, you know, and it does. You'd think City would have already met it if it is. I do agree with that. You know, it's sort of like he's getting desperate when he shouldn't really have to get to that point.
And it's dead shitty, and it's dead unprofessional. And I know that loads of people have said to me, yeah, but Mahrez went on strike. Well, actually, like the thing is that, one, it was a different market. Two, within that different market, what we were offering was a club record at the time for a footballer. So you weren't talking about a fee that felt way below market value. It was a fee that at the time was fair enough. Like, you go, this is a club record for a footballer. And we went there in January and they said no. And so we go back in the summer and we try and do it, and they still try and take the piss with the fee. So City go, well, we're not going to pay that, and Mahrez goes on strike. I think there's a big difference between that and that moment and that marketplace. And right now, for Nunes to go on strike on Friday because City aren't prepared to pay 60. If City aren't prepared to pay 60, I think he should continue to train and let the clubs figure it out and let the agents figure it out. And there is a feeling around Wolves that he's had a terrible attitude all year, or the 12 months that he's been there. And he's apparently a sulker, and he's apparently a bit of a mad ass. And I'm just looking at the fact that we're just getting rid of Cancelo now. And I'm sat here going, really? We're going to bring another lad like that through the door who's going to behave like a bellend as soon as it doesn't work for him, or as soon as he's on the bench for 4 games? That's not going to work.
Well, I mean, you've got some points there, and it's one of those things where I instinctively, I understand their. Oh God, here we go. So a tweet from Tolmy 1 minute ago. He put bit conflicted post in this. Vibe coming out of City is that we walk away from Nunes by tomorrow morning. We don't have faith concluding a deal. Pat's tactical, wanting time to move on. Well, there we go, man. Looks like that's
I said yesterday afternoon, I don't think it's going to happen. And a few people around me were like, what are you talking about? So obvious. Like, look at what Romano said. I'm like, no. Like, look at what Ornstein said. And Ornstein got that directly from Wolves, clearly, right? And the brief from Wolves could not be any clearer. We want our valuation met. We're not here to compromise. We want our valuation met. And I know for a fact that City were already saying at the weekend, there's no way that we're paying £60 million plus add-ons for Nunes. It's a deal that has to be done on our terms at the level that we rate the player at, or we'll walk away.
And I think you're right in the fact that, like, look, in the Mahrez thing is different in terms of that. You said the market was different then, and let's be honest. If City have quite publicly gone in for Declan Rice for 95 million, and they're quite publicly gone at one point were hunting, Jude Bellingham for probably would have been 100 million. Let's be honest, we would have gone there if he wanted us, and then of course offered 85 million for Paqueta. But then we're given the fact that they signed Nunes for 45 million a year ago, something like that. In this market, this late on when they haven't got a chance to buy someone, I don't think it's unreasonable. And they could just turn around and go, here's a quote from Pep Guardiola, who called him one of the best midfielders in world football. They literally have that quote, like the cards are all in their hands. And I just agree. I agree that in this instance, City can't really be haggling over 5-10 million. Do you think this player's right? And like, especially when it's way below.
If you really want him, pay it. If you really want him, pay it. Otherwise, walk away, because you're going to look like mugs. If this goes to Thursday or Friday, City are going to look like mugs if they walk away on Thursday or Friday. I think they're going to have to pull the plug tonight or tomorrow morning. And even then, they're going to look a little bit, it's just going to look a bit, the whole thing is going to look a little bit pointless. And I think the other thing with Wolves that's really important is if you do a little bit of digging. So Fossen want to sell the club. And there's been like a kind of frost of the relationship between Mendes and Fossen is not what it once was, right? And so it's entirely possible that Fossen, if they want to sell the club, they don't really care what Mendes, like if Mendes is going, well, sell him for this and I'll get you this lad. They're going, we don't want that lad because we're selling the football club. Yeah. We want maximum value for a player that we've brought to the Premier League, paid X amount for, and he's performed for a year. And he made like 30 appearances or something like that, or 28 appearances for them. So he played plenty of Premier League football, and they'll be able to point at other fees in the market and go, that's what we want. So I'm not saying it definitely won't happen, but you asked me my opinion on whether I think it'll happen. My opinion is I don't think so. I think if it was going to happen, it would have happened.
The more I think about it, and I've been a bit of a haze of this, but the more I think about it, it probably should have happened by now. And look, we can all argue about the strike stuff, whether it's right or not, but I actually agree you probably shouldn't have got to that point. I don't think this is a hard transfer to do in this market if they really want it. And once again, we're talking about they've got a budget of £100 million for midfielder, like 60 million for. Once again, let's be honest, he's played in the Champions League. This is not an unreasonable request. It just isn't an unreasonable request in this market, and that is the context.
If you put a world record bid in, or you put a club record bid in for a footballer, right, and the selling club rejects it, and the lad goes on strike, I can almost get my head around that, because I'm like, look. There is obviously clubs are entitled to value players however they want, but it is a trading market. Yeah, it's not the case that players just fulfill contracts and then leave on freeze. Clubs also love to realize value, and if they're like, look at us with Calvin Phillips, we'd love to flip him. We'd love to be like, right, see you later, mate. So these kinds of relationships, they're a two-way street. But I think in the case of Nunes, why I'm a bit uncomfortable with it is, I think City's valuation is based on how much they rate him, but it's not based on the market. I think Wolves are entitled to be going, come on, lad, 60, 65, then we've got a conversation, yeah? And if City go, no, we don't want to pay that, Nunes has got to suck it up.
No, I agree. To be honest, I actually think it's sort of weirdly in bad faith from Man City to do that as well this late in the window. I don't care about Wolves, but they can go.
I don't think City have done it. So this whole thing began with Romano. Like, clearly Jorge Mendes is talking to Fabrizio Romano a lot, right? Now, the interesting thing is that when Romano said City a bid, City told Mike Minay that evening, no, we haven't, right? Then the next day, the Wolves rioters, so John Percy and Telegraph and all the Wolves rioters, they say Wolves have rejected a bid from Man City. I guarantee you what's happened is Mendes has gone to City and gone, you're looking for a midfielder, I can get you Mateus Nunes for X amount, yeah? And City have gone, really? And he's gone, yeah. And City have gone, all right, if you can get him for that, tell him we'll pay that. So he's gone there and he's gone, Nunes wants to go to Man City. They're prepared to pay 55 million euros, right? And Wolves have gone, no chance. We want at least 10, 15 more. Now Mendes has gone back to City and gone, you're going to have to bid again. And City are going, well, we ain't paying silly money. You told us you could get him for this fee. We're not going above a certain level with this. So Mendes has now told his player, go on strike. because you're going to have to force this. And he's now he's basically trying to engineer a deal. And I think that Manchester City, in the end, will walk away, because I think in the end, Wolves will be pretty intransigent about the fee that they want. And City will go, we don't think he's worth that.
And this is classic Jorge Mendes. He does famously move his clients around.
Totally.
He does look
All
for these
agents
big
do
things.
that.
He does it. And I know they do it. It sounds weird,
All
but
agents do it. It's their job.
I know agents, and I've had a sense recently that someone might even be trying to play, and that sounds weird, knowing that I know people to tell people. You ever get the sense that someone might tell you something because they want it to get out there? I feel like I've had that person recently.
Any agent who says to any human being
about interest
X,
in
Y, and Z about one of his players, it's because he wants it out in the public domain.
I literally
Anything he doesn't want in the public
genuinely
domain, he won't
heard
say.
something about a City player linked something to, like, a current City player linked to a very big club yesterday, and I was like, what, really? And it's mad, and I'm not going to put it out there because it's just, I thought, let's see if it comes out, because I'm genuinely curious.
As soon as this video is over, you're telling me.
Do you know what, mate? I'll message you right now on WhatsApp, and you obviously keep it to yourself, but I'll message you right now on WhatsApp. And I actually believe there's a element of truth in it, but then I started to thinking, are they trying to get it out because they know that I'll probably tell someone and then it'll get out there? Please don't tell anyone, mate. There you go. I'm writing to you right now.
Let's see what we've got here.
There we go.
Yeah, I believe that.
You believe that? I believe
100%. 100%. I believe that.
Yeah, it fits everything you don't like, wouldn't it?
And it's not just that. It's like the position, the player that they tried to sign that they lost out on. That makes perfect sense to me.
Absolutely. Oof. I know.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. I mean,
sorry, lads. Everybody on this stream right now is just going, "What the hell?"
But then I thought to myself, "Do you know what? It's so specific a rumor that I am just not getting involved in that in my head." So and it'll come out if it comes out. But I'm not going to mention it. I don't think it'll happen for what it's worth. I don't think it's going to happen. I feel like it's too late in the window. I think City wouldn't want to deal with this club right now, and I just can't see it happening. But it'll come out if it comes out. If it's not, it's bullshit. So we will see. But this came directly from a very good source, incredibly good source. So yeah. Anyway, it's not Calvin. Yeah, Calvin Phillips is going to Barcelona on a 70 million deal. There we go. We will see. Everyone's guessing in the chat. Let's talk about this window then, because you're probably right. Look, sometimes I wish I was chatting to Blues more often, because I feel like I'm doing these videos myself. But when I chat to you, you hear different opinions and so on, more than I would usually when I'm chatting to myself in the video, basically. And the more you talk about this Nunes thing, that theory about Jorge Mendes, Mendes is a fixer. He's a guy who goes around the scenes, he makes things happen. I absolutely have no doubt whatsoever. I think City have gone, well, Nunes would take him. And I think it's not like these forced their hand, but once again, for the price. And he would have gone, you can get you this and this. I don't think City would have even gone near Nunes, unless Mendes came to them, because they would have gone, oh, he'll be 78 million right now. I think there's an element of that. And the Mendes kind of sort of being the mastermind.
He's just a backup. I think that's the thing that, for City, I know it. They've said it privately. He's a backup player. He ain't coming in to take anybody's spot on a big level or a permanent basis. He's a squad player that will come in and eat up minutes when they need Rodri to rest. They put Kovacic in the 6. He's good, he's got a good pedigree. He's technically good. He's a dribbler. They like that. They like central dribblers. In fact, they want more dribblers in the team, full stop. So he's got some characteristics that they like, but why would you bully Wolves over 5 million? That's the way I look at it.
Given that we are desperate as well, that's the thing. That's the thing. Given
I think that's the thing. I don't think that's the case. I actually think, I think that City, the more
that's why I put it in
inverted
commas, by the way. We're perceived as that way, and that's the thing. Is we know City are very relaxed. They're very happy to just go.
The more people think they're desperate, the more undesperate they act. So basically, you lose Jorginho, who you signing? Well, you know what? We'll sign nobody, right? You lose Harry Kane, who you signing? We'll just do false nine again. I guarantee you, and I put this in a chat yesterday, if City don't sign Nunes, Guardiola, first press conference back, he'll just go, we won't overpay for players.
We have Rico, we have John John can play there.
Exactly. We have Rico, we have John, we have
Calvin.
Calvin, yeah. He can't say that with a straight face, though.
I feel so sorry. I do actually feel sorry for him to an extent because I have nothing against him. It's just
I don't feel sorry for him. Bro gets paid loads of money.
You're right. I actually do. The guy is
let's not get violins out. He's won a treble. He's got all the medals. He's on probably on 150, 200 grand a week.
Jesus,
it's cool.
He's on over like 2 million a year, maybe. Oh man, I would love to be a backup footballer. Just imagine that, mate. Imagine that,
I want Scott Carson's gig, mate. That's Carson, what I want.
Just walk around the Traff Centre all day, mess around, and someone recognise you in, TK Maxx one day or something. Largely you're sort of fine, aren't you? With this window, then, we don't get this in. Where does this window stand for you? Okay, not great. Because I do agree. Like, where would it start? Does the De Bruyne injury massively change the perception of this injury? Because obviously, if De Bruyne is still here, fit and playing, and we're watching Kovacic and Rodri be brilliant, and Phil's out wide, and blah blah blah, we probably would be a little bit more relaxed. But that does change. You can't ignore the fact that we've lost Kevin De Bruyne, and we could be out for longer than we realise, and that massively changes the perception. It's fair to say, I know it sounds crazy, but we could be out with Kevin De Bruyne for more or less all the season at this point. We don't even know. Like, we are down a player for a very long time, and he's 32 years old, I think. Coming back, De Bruyne might not be De Bruyne until March, and at that point, it might not be De Bruyne at all in the season. That's a worst case scenario, but at this point, you have to consider that. And you have to consider that, we don't even know the answer by January whether we're going to rely on him again this season. So where's the season? Where does this transfer?
So for me, I don't think it's just about De Bruyne's injury. I've got an issue with how we've lowered expectations about what constitutes a strong squad. I think that I understand the fact that Pep likes a small squad, but I think they've indulged that a little bit too much. They've allowed the squad to be shorn summer on summer on summer, and they haven't necessarily addressed some of the areas of weakness. And I think that in particular, when it comes to attacking players, I think that they haven't really, so for me, Alvarez and Haaland are both number 9s. Right? So you bought 2 number 9s, but actually you let go of Sterling and he wasn't a 9, and you let go of Jesus and he wasn't a 9. Both of them, they played wide more than they did play in the number 9 position. I think the other thing, so getting Doku to step in the right direction. If you keep Cole Palmer, that's fine. Then you go, all right, you've got Doku, you keep Palmer, you got Bernardo, you got Foden, you got Grealish, we're good. Yeah. But then you look at centre midfield and you go, Gundo's gone and De Bruyne is out until whenever he's out, until our 2 most important, powerful, influential, goal-making centre midfield players are not available this season. You have to do better than just Mateo Kovacic. If the window ends and all you've done is Kovacic, then you've not had a good window. Sorry. There's no way that you can spin that as you've had a good window. And also, what you're playing at, like, why you're not broke. You keep telling the world how much money you've made.
I agree.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I keep having to read about, we made a profit of this much on this lad. We made a profit of this much on this lad. That's great. I'm sure the accountants are buzzing, but we're football fans and we're here to be entertained, and we want the best possible footballers available on the pitch, not a bank account full of cash. And so when you lose Gundo and you lose KDB in the manner that you've lost them in, you've got to plan better, lads.
Yeah, and
you've got to plan better.
In the chat, I've said, but it's Foden's time though. But yeah, you're absolutely right, mate. But then Foden also, if he's not a winger, then all of a sudden you're down to Bernardo, Grealish.
There's not enough players. It's not enough players.
Someone gets injured.
Can't have the idea we've got enough players.
And I agree. And look. And even Doku, for being honest, is brought in as a project player. He has, this guy wasn't even a regular starter for Rennes last year. He was on the bench quite a lot. So I think he's going to be fantastic for us. I think he could be just what we needed. But once again, we're not signing Mahrez here, or even Sterling to an extent.
No.
We're
It'll take him 6 months.
Yeah, it will do, and I think that's very reasonable. He could come in and blow us away, but I guess the point I'm saying is this is not a risk-free signing. It isn't. This is a signing of potential, and that's fun. It's exciting, but when you sign Mahrez, you got guaranteed. He was a PFA Player of the Year. This is what levels we're talking about here. And I'm not saying every signing has to be that, but when you lose a Mahrez, and then you're saying all of a sudden Foden's a midfielder, so you lost a Mahrez and a Foden as a winger. Then look at it that way. All of a sudden you're like, well, we are down numbers, and we can talk about so and so can play here, so can play there, but we know injuries are going to happen. Look at the bench recently; like it's going to.
They can't play in two positions at once, though.
Exactly,
they can't play in two positions at once, right? So if you lose one more, like Lord forbid, Bernardo Silva in training this week pulls up, what are you doing? You're going to play Phil Foden on the right wing. Who are you playing in centre midfield? Calvin Phillips? You're going straight 4-4-2. You're going to do Rodri, Kovacic, Haaland and Alvarez, Foden on the right, Grealish on the left, and no subs, nothing on the bench. Like, just, you know what I mean?
It's so quick, isn't it, how quickly the squad gets
cross yourself, do it. You know what I mean? Just cross yourself and hope that nobody else goes down. I just think it's a bit mad. And I know that there's something that, like, nobody needs to say to me we won the treble last season. I know, right? Nobody needs to tell me that we won 4 of the last 5 Premier League titles. I know how good we are. I know how good Pep is. That's not the conversation. There's a difference between success over here and the reality of nothing lasts forever. And every season that you stand still, you go backwards. Every season you stand still, you go backwards.
Yeah.
And so you're a forward-thinking top football club. It's constantly planning 12, 18 months in advance. And City do that. I think this summer, 2 things happened that they weren't prepared for, or 3 things, right? Number 1, they weren't prepared to not get Bellingham. I think they, for whatever reason, had convinced themselves by March that they were going to get him. Number 2, they were absolutely convinced the morning after the Champions League final that Gundo was staying. And number 3, they had no clue that Saudi were gonna come for Riyadh.
Yeah.
So what's happened is there's stuff you can plan for and there's stuff you can't plan for. The stuff you can't plan for happened this summer. And I think that I actually sort of respect the fact that City don't panic. Yeah. I like that. I'm a big fan of that. But this is where I've got a general issue with the small squad thing, because small squad is fine if you're constantly in total control of everything within that small squad. But if you run with a small squad and you let a man go into the last 12 months of his contract and he doesn't sign a new one, and he's like, yeah, we'll talk about it at the end of the season, you better have a plan for if he goes, I'm not signing. You should always be prepared to lose a player because a big offer comes in and because they're of a certain age and they go, I want to take that offer, particularly if it's a player who you've dumped out of every big game. Yeah. So if Riyad Mahrez doesn't play in any of the big games in the final third of the season, you've got to be prepared in your head for maybe he'll go, I don't want to be here anymore.
And that's the thing is, it's not even a case of the Saudi market. Anyone could come in. PSG could come in.
Totally.
So especially with all the rumors about Neymar and Messi leaving on. I absolutely agree. And to be honest, I think the Gundogan one to me is the one that bugs me more. I think the idea, presuming we got Bellingham, if City did that, was a little bit naive. I think maybe they got a little bit full of themselves after the treble or whatever. But
I think after Haaland, I think they probably. Yeah. My hindsight hat tells me, because I know that City planned so well. And it's kind of felt like this, it just felt a bit like Russian roulette this summer with transfers at City. And I think that's because they kind of had prepped themselves that we're going to get Bellingham. And that's actually going to mean that whether Gundo stays or goes, we're good. Yeah.
The Gundo thing for me is the one that does bug me, though, personally. I really don't. And I know City have got form for doing this. I don't like letting a player go to the end of the season and not knowing they're going to be here when they're still key. It just, at least for Fernandinho, he was sort of, relatively old hat at this point, and we had the replacement in place. I just don't like it. Gundogan is too big and too important. And to be honest, I also feel like I know it sounds really simple, but if a guy's your captain and he's that good and he hasn't told you if you're staying or leaving at the end of the season, he's obviously going. Like, and that to me is like, I just don't get why someone that intelligent and someone that respectful, it's easy to say in hindsight, and maybe hindsight makes it obvious, but it should be obvious at the time. He's Gundogan. He's a smart man. He's obviously would have told him if he was going to stay. Like, I don't think Gundogan I don't think he treats his own future that ad hoc. He's too smart to do that. Would you sit there, like, if you see a person, you're a smart man. Like, if you had an opportunity somewhere else, you wouldn't be sitting there and go, I'll decide in 3 months. You know, of course you're going to plan your life. You had a kid coming on the way. You had a wife and marriage. You obviously knew what he was going to do for an awful long time. And I think he tried to manage it personally, but I think City should have just got an answer from him. Like, and I think there's an element of like, we love you, mate.
But you know what happened?
Need to know. I don't know.
But you know what happened, don't you? What happened is, so at the end of 21-22, he doesn't start against Villa. Right? Yeah. It's a huge game, title decider. Gundo's not in the starting lineup.
Yep.
That week in the build-up to that game, he's offered a contract extension for 12 months. And he's like, I want 2 years. And they're like, no, we don't do that. You're only getting 12 months. Yeah. And so they were offended. And I don't know if you remember, but within 10 days of the season ending, there was an exclusive in the Mail, big story saying that Gundo was leaving, that he'd made his decision and that he was leaving that summer. I think what happened is Gundo's gone, well, I think I'm going to go. I've got some offers. And I think they've gone, no, we want you to stay another year. Right. And he's gone, all right. And what's happened is his influence over that season is so big that as the months tick down, City start going, maybe we should offer him the 2 years. The problem is it's too late, because I need to feel valued at the right time. Like, if I feel like you dropped me from the game against Villa, I come on, it's my goal to changes everything. And we win the title, and then you're like, yeah, but we're only giving you a 12-month extension. That might be the moment that I go, well, you know what? I'll leave on a free next summer. You're all right. Yeah. And then after that, you don't have to say anything. You just go, all right, it's cool. We'll talk about it at the end of the season. And City, for their point, and I hate to do this because I feel like when I say these things, people will be like, you're critical of the club. I'm not. I love the way we're run, and I'm cool with the decisions that they make, but they can be characterized in certain ways. And I think there's a level of hubris in feeling strong enough that, you know what, we can convince him in the literal last week of his agreement. We can wait until after the Champions League final. And because we're City, we know that we can convince him. We've got Pep. Pep will talk to him, blah, blah, blah. We'll get it done. And then it doesn't happen because you've got a bit of hubris about you. If you've read The Room, then you will have known 12 months ago that you'd almost burnt that bridge, and you needed to act much sooner, much more decisively, and with much more passion.
Yeah, I agree with that, and like I find it hard to believe that over that 12 months, City wouldn't have sent any signals of interest. You know, that's the thing. Is like, I feel like I don't think Gundogan's is deceitful. Not like you're saying that, but I don't think he would have. I don't know. Like, surely, maybe there was for a while. Maybe there was for a while that he was sort of undecided in the football. You're in the season, you're going through the games, and you're enjoying your football. It's going well, but it does bug me. It massively bugs me because like I think you're largely onto something, and I think City's ego does sometimes, that sense of self-confidence does sort of cloud them a little bit every now and then. But at the same time, as you said, they've sort of earned the right to do that, you know. And
and you have to be.
Yeah, you have to have a bit of it as well, don't you?
Yeah, the other side of that coin is what you don't want is players sat around on massive contracts who are worthless to you.
Yeah.
And if you look across the top clubs, not just in England, right across Europe, you'll see loads of examples of fellas where you'll go, shit, is he still at that club? Do you know what I mean? Like, look at how long Phil Jones was at
United. Are the example, aren't they? And they're so close to home.
United
as well.
United are a great example of that. And City financially are run so prudently and so efficiently that they will look at their best players. So you look at Fernandinho, Aguero, Vinny, guys like that, and they will go, look, you're legends of the club. We love you, but we're only giving you a rolling 12-month deal. We're not going to commit longer than that because that's just how we run our
And
business.
the problem with this is like footballers, once again, footballers picture this: you're a footballer, you're constantly told by everyone in the world how brilliant you are. You know, they have even the best ones have an ego. They have pride as well. And like, they will remember this. You're right. He will remember at one point being told that he's only going to get 12 months. He was like, I was left on the bench that time. And even though things can change, at the same time, the problem is once that idea has been planted, you know, once that seed is there, that seed of that doubt, and they don't feel special anymore, you know. Well, look at Kyle Walker's a good example as well, you know. Kyle Walker, even though it went well for him, you know, like it definitely hurt his pride. It definitely hurt his pride being sat on the bench for an awful long time. It definitely hurt Mahrez's pride. It obviously did, and this is the reason. Obviously, Mahrez has gone there because it's a great offer for him. But I still believe there's a chance that if Mahrez was playing regularly, I'm not saying it was wrong to be dropped. He probably
I don't think he'd have left.
If
he'd have played the Champions League final, there's no way he'd have left.
This is not to criticise Man City. I'm just saying that how much their pride and their ego comes into it. And I think you might be onto something. Like Kyle Walker, I think there's an element of like that. Even though he was involved in the final eventually, like it's absolutely normal that he'd be like, well, you know, it's like, you know, it's a bit weird. It's like the relationship where, you know, you have a relationship.
Could you imagine if your boss went in front of the world's media and said, he can't do that job. The job that I need from my office, Steve, he can't do it. No chance.
And that's sort of what Kyle Walker and Guardiola talked about not being able to play the Rico Lewis role. And once again, it's like sort of like, imagine you found out you've been cheated on or whatever with your partner and it hurts and you can go for all this counselling and all this therapy, but there's never going to be that trust. This is the thing. There's always going to be that slight bit of insecurity or doubt again, and it can happen even with a good intention. You can tell them how much you love them, like, you know, and it can happen, can't it? You know, it can.
I'm going to be honest. I like the way Pep handles the squad, and I like the way, in general, the club handle footballers. I think the contractual thing with letting lads run into their last 12 months, I think they've learned a lesson with Gundo, and I think any organisation. And I know that Soriano has said this privately to the people that work at City, that, like, you know, he'd rather they try things and make mistakes and then go again. He wants to. He likes
mistakes
the
are part of
idea.
the process, aren't they? You have to make mistakes.
It's part of the process. And so I think they will have looked at Gundo now in hindsight, and they'll go, "That was probably a mistake. We should have been like." If you look at what Kyle Walker has got 12 months left on his contract. Look at what they're doing right now this summer. If they'd have done that a year ago with Gundo, he'd have probably signed a new deal. Yeah. But instead, they were still in that mindset of players of a certain age. It's a blanket rule. You only get 12 months.
I also feel that age thing as well, once again, it's something I learned from. It's 2023. It ain't 2017. So 2015 anymore. Players these days on. You look around, you got Modric, you know, playing at a high level still. And I think there's sort of an element of truth to it. But at the same time, like, football, it isn't black and white. You know, to an extent, I think City have always sort of tried to control the narrative on that front. And I think it's why they put these messages out about how players above a certain age don't do this and whatever. Because they want it to be seen sensibly as not personal. It's just how they do it. But at the same time, you know, that's not going to get past people's pride. It isn't. People are too complicated. People go, well, I've just done this for you. I've just done that for you. And you're still like, surely you should trust me. You know, like everything we've been through together and so on. And people will always do that. They'll always find a way. But I think you're right. I think the Kyle Walker situation right now is a reaction. It's an absolute reaction. And I thought I appreciate it. I think it's the right thing to do as well. And
I agree.
And I think it's also worth remembering that, you know, mistakes are going to happen, you know, and it can be frustrating. But I also don't think, you know, they don't know that they've made a mistake every now and then. They do know. They know, and I think Pep will tell them. You know, when we get things wrong and so on. And there's a super chat, by the way, which I want to go to from Huang Chuang. It says, I like to think that hierarchy of planning for life without De Bruyne long term, because it's relevant to this. Said Wirtz has been talked about, but like in Tyson next season, Bayern Munich, also him as well. It's obviously he's talking about Wirtz there and so on, and De Bruyne. We presume they are planning for De Bruyne's exit. You know, we would presume. I mean, do you think it's a transfer? Do you think it's Foden? Do you think it's a winger? Like, or does it?
I think City will. I think City will. I think you need it. I think City need another creative player. Yeah. I think they know that. I don't think there's any question that they know that they need another creative player. I think Florian Wirtz right now is probably the he's probably close to the top of any list, but for most clubs. I'm not too worried about Bayern Munich because Bayern, have got Musiala, and I think that Musiala and Wirtz in the same team feels not like a very Bayern thing to do. I think that my personal worry would be Xabi Alonso going to Real Madrid in the summer of 2024 and Florian Wirtz following from there. Yeah. And if you look at Alonso's kind of trajectory right now as coach, I mean, the way they've started this season, it's not impossible, that could be a scenario. But then, footballers are an endless resource. Do you know what I mean? Like, City just need to find the next one and go and get him.
It's crazy, isn't it? Like, you're right, and the concentration is on Wirtz now, but a year ago it was on Bellingham, and before that there is always someone, and that's the thing. That this is genuinely how I always feel about transfers. There is always someone. There is absolutely someone out there who could be world class in Man City, even if it's not Wirtz. There's loads. And thank you so much, Pac-Man. I like my fleece too. It's a very good fleece. But there's actually loads of players, and like it's weird because people will listen to criticism of Man City and accept that, presume that we're critical of every, I often get accused all the time because I work for City of not being critical. No, I'm not. No, that's nonsense. Just because I see the positives more than often than not, I'm absolutely also aware of that. Like, City have messed up in this transfer window. Of course they have with the midfield. It's been a shambles. Like, I can say that and admit it. Like, but just because I'm probably aware of the size of the problems, that's the thing. Like, City's problems are often smaller than most clubs because we're usually very well run, and that's what it's always worth saying. And in general, the problem is when you've got perfection, it's not unreasonable as a fan or as a club, and it's just look for those areas. Well, not close perfection. Look for those areas that just sort of need ironing out. And
you've set standards, haven't you?
Standards. That's the thing.
If you set the standards right up there, which is what Guardiola has done, that's the prism through which your supporters will view the club. So I'm not judging City based on how good United are or how good Liverpool are.
Exactly.
I'm judging City based on how good City are and were. So when I look at the kind of season we had last season, I go, okay, how can it be better?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to go backwards. So how can it be better? Well, you need a stronger squad. That would be my first thing. You probably need a little bit more tactical flexibility within the squad.
Exactly.
The second thing, And finally, because you've done a treble, you need a couple of lads who had no part to play in that treble, who turn up and go, I want to win the treble this season because I wasn't here last season. And we're getting there. I think for all the critique and all that shit, the two Croatians, Kovacic and Gvardiol, oh my God. Like,
just Vardiol, by the way, the other weekend. That touch, mate. That touch.
Mate, that guy.
Bringing out the fingers. Yeah, that touch he did. Jesus. Like,
he's just somewhere else.
I get the sense as well. He's playing within himself. He's playing within himself still as well.
Yeah.
Which is scary.
He's still learning. And Kovacic is like, that's the fastest adaptation to Pep ball that I've seen in Pep's time at City.
Imagine him at City 5 years younger, by the way. He'd be the best midfielder in the world now. Like, honestly, he would be. I really believe that. If he'd got Pep 5 years ago, now we'd be looking at... We're talking about him in David Silva. We're talking about that level. I honestly believe 5 years of Kovacic under Pep, we're talking about one of our greatest ever. I know that sounds crazy, but he's that good. He's ridiculous. And I do love this sort of system change, by the way, which does sort of allow Kovacic. I do hope, Phil, I hope we sort of persist with this now. Obviously, we're going to have to because it looks like Nunes won't be coming in. I reckon that's not going to happen. I do reckon we're going to see Kovacic, Rodri, Foden, and that three, to me, I love that. I absolutely love it. Like, I think Foden just as a pure number 10, it's just a throwback. Yeah. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. And obviously, I feel like he senses it. He can tell as well. Like, by the way, we haven't talked about that little cameo when he came on Foden the other day. That cameo, mate, special. Like, genuinely special. I got goosebumps thinking about it right now because it was that
Made in Edgeley. Made in Edgeley.
Made in Edgeley, exactly. Like, but the fact that how can you have like 2 big chances created, get an assist, 3 out of 3 dribbles completed, and all this kind of stuff in 12 minutes when you've got the shits as well? Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, honestly, just special stuff, and like, it's. I also can't wait. I can't wait for Saturday. I just can't wait to watch Phil Foden play midfield and Ruben's going to his first game, by the way, as well. So on Saturday, we're going we've got a very kind person offers hospitality, and it's the only way I take my kid right now. But me, Nicola, and Ruben are going down. He's going to see his first game in person. Hopefully, it'll be a Phil Foden masterclass.
And it'll be in a box.
Well, that's the thing is, I wouldn't be taking kid otherwise, because.
No, I understand.
Yeah, but as soon as someone said it's one of City's partners were like, "Do you want to come to the game on Saturday?" I was like, "Yeah, of course I do." Can my wife and baby come? And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And I'm like, "Yes!" I was buzzing, so I can't wait to see it, man. A couple of super chats, by the way. Mancunian away, hey mate, good channel by the way. Everyone check him out. It's hi lads, hope all good. We need a creative midfielder, but I wouldn't say for KDB leaving, as I feel KDB will go deeper. I'm not sure I agree, by the way. Do you see a future for KDB a little bit deeper? I don't know if he does it. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think he will.
You reckon?
I think he will. I think because I think actually there's two different sides to KDB's game. So actually, he's really athleticism and dynamism are a big part of what he does right now. Yeah, but I think that he could easily play from deeper and basically be a sitting midfielder because he already knows. So you imagine that once you lose your dynamism and your athleticism, you can't move as fast around the pitch. But with KDB's intelligence, you know exactly where to be in any phase of play. So I think for me, De Bruyne will probably end up like Luka Modric, that he'll just play and play and play and play. And his natural ability will mean that he almost gets better. Like even in his, like Luka Modric for me has gotten better season on season over the last 5 years.
I hope you're right about De Bruyne. I just worry a little bit about his game being quite explosive at the moment, and if it'll do. He's intelligent enough. His passing range is too good. Well, yeah, and I got a feeling. I'm not worried about him disappearing in a year or two. I've got no worries about that. I think he'll be still at a good level for a while, but we'll see in January, February, won't we? That's the crazy thing where he's at. Italian Stallion with super chat as well. So, Steve, how are you guys doing? I'm good, mate, and I hope Ahsan as well. Best news this summer is extending Bernardo's contract. So, what are your thoughts on the release clause of Bernardo contract extending to leave next summer? Yeah, how do you feel on this Bernardo thing? Because if you're not sure, guys, the strong rumor is that there's around a 50 million release clause, and he's signed for 3 years. There's many ways to take it. You can look at it and go, well, City are sort of guaranteed that they won't lose him on a free in a couple of years' time from now, or you could turn around and go. But the thing is, to me, this release clause is the release clause means different things depending on stipulations. For example, I was chatting to a mate on Twitter this morning. I was like, look, if this is going to exist, can we at least put a time deadline on it? So it's not 1 week before the window shuts. And can it be only to certain clubs in certain leagues? Because all these things make it different, in my opinion. You have to consider the circumstances around it. Because just a flat 50 million release clause, if PSG come in on the 31st of August and just pay 50 million, I'd be fuming. Because they're like, well, we've lost one of our best players there, and so late. There has to be stipulations, but anyway, how do you feel about this whole Bernardo situation?
I think everybody wins. I think with Gundo going, Bernardo, if he'd have left this summer, would have been a fucking catastrophe. So you get to keep him for a year, he gets pay rise, and you get a year to plan for what you're going to do after Bernie, if Bernie goes next summer. I think with the release clause, I'm really relaxed because I know how they structured Haaland's release clause, and so I know that City are really creative in the actual how it works. Like for example, Haaland's release clause basically had to be activated. I have to remember exactly what it was now. So basically, the way that Haaland's release, So the way that Haaland's release clause worked would be that in the final 6 months of Guardiola's, to keep it simple, from the 1st of March of the season that Guardiola is leaving, at the end of, Haaland's agents have the right to go and canvass an offer at the release clause. But that release clause then has to be, and this was in this clause doesn't exist anymore because this deal was done prior to Pep signing a new deal. So actually, Haaland's release clause was removed at the moment at which Guardiola's new contract was signed. So had Pep not signed a new deal, then in the last 3 months of his deal, Haaland's agents could then go and canvass an offer. But then I think the offer had to be in by, the clause had to be paid by like the 1st of July or something like that. So I imagine with Bernardo, it'll be a case of there's a clause, but the clause got to be paid by 1st of July.
You can't Barca faffing around in mid-August, exactly. As they always do, going, oh, we're going to buy you, and off a toffee crisp and a packet of Watsits. You know what I mean? Like, as Barca always do. No, I agree. I do think City... And once again, it goes back to working with smart players. Bernardo is a smart, intelligent man by all accounts, and I think he's a reasonable guy as well. And I think he'll go, yeah, I understand why you don't want to lose me a week before the window shuts, potentially, for a price that would even cover his replacement. So, and there's probably an element of as well of it being active around Pep and all that kind of stuff. And I think there'll be a structure there. It's not just like, you can go at 50 million a year. So I sort of, ultimately, I think the most important thing here, he's just making sure we don't lose him on a free in a year. Talking about the lessons learned again, Bernardo Silva, he will still be very, very good by the time his contract would have run out.
And even if you're going to if you're prepared, you can even lose a player on a free. It's fine.
Well, but now we've got 3 years to do it. That's the thing, that's the thing. So it's like one of those things where, like, I'm absolutely at peace with this. I think it's the news to me. Obviously, you could get down about the release clause, but it's on everyone's terms, and that's the most important thing here. And City prepared for it.
You know what I think they've done with that release clause is they've gone, well, look, we want to give you a pay rise and we want you to extend by an extra year. But what we're going to do is we're going to put a release clause in at the end of the first year that basically is the same valuation as if you didn't sign the extension. So if he hadn't have signed an extension next summer with a year left on his deal, we'd probably be looking at £50 million around, because he's 30 years old and there's a year left on his deal. So all they've done is they've gone, here's a pay rise, and there's a release clause that lets you go in a year for the fee that we would have charged had you not signed the extension. So everybody wins.
Absolutely. I think it's smart business. I think it's creative and smart. And I think City are getting better at that stuff as well. And to be honest, they're relatively progressive that way, I reckon. Ahsan, mate, we've been chatting for ages. I'll let you go. It's been a pleasure as always. Guys, if you enjoyed this content, please, of course, subscribe, like all the usual. Thank you, of course, to all the chats, the comments. Can't get to all the comments, but we are reading what happens.
Can I do a plug?
Of course you can.
Can I do a plug? Go to 9320, sign up to the 9320 player. It's £4 a month, and you get, like, honestly, you get more content than you can listen to from a podcast point of view, and it's all really good. It's all top. Match reviews, previews, transfer shows, like anything happens in City World, we're there with a podcast. The team is amazing. Howard, Steve, Lloyd. In fact, the team is massive. Like, I always say those three, but there's probably like 15 people who I should be naming. Our crew of contributors are amazing. So go sign up.
Absolutely. I've spammed it in the chat as well. And people do, honestly, go and check it out. It'll be, I don't know, cost of a pint a month or whatever. And it's absolutely worth it. Like, you'll put it this way. The best way I can describe it is you'll feel like you understand your football club more. And that's the best way. You'll feel like you understand it. You'll feel closer to it.
Big compliment, that. Thanks,
no, it's true. It's true. Because I feel like I understand it more when I chat to you, mate. And because as I said, I often make videos myself, and I like talking to people, as you know. We're very similar people that way, man. Like, and I sometimes enjoy listening to podcasts because go, oh yeah, I hadn't really thought about that, because why would it? Because I'm stuck in my own little echo chamber of one person. And so that's the value of podcasts. Someone will say to you or to me, oh yeah, that's a good way of looking at it, actually. And we, so go check out 90 podcast anyway. It's wonderful stuff. And of course, we'll be back here anyway soon. I hope you're enjoying these. We'll be doing them regularly, hopefully. As every now and then it'll be difficult, but we'll be doing them regularly because it's good fun. Guys, thank you very much. Ahsan, you're a superstar, mate.
Cheers. Nice one.
Subscribe, like to the video and all that kind of stuff. Check out the content from yesterday, and I'll be back later on with another video because some news will happen, and that's how it works these days. Bye-bye in a bit, and have a wonderful day.
Bye.